Hello, everyone. At the southern edge of the United States, Florida stretches into a fragile chain of coral islands, surrounded by brilliant blue water. And from the mainland, there's a road that seems almost impossible. It runs straight out into the ocean, bridge after bridge, until it reaches a small but vibrant Caribbean city at the very end of the line, Key West. This road is the overseas highway, often nicknamed the Highway to the Sea, or even the Highway to Nowhere. Today, most people see it as a scenic masterpiece built for tourism and transportation. But behind the sun, the wind, and the white beaches, this route once carried a very different meaning. Because Key West sits shockingly close to Cuba, only about 90 miles across the water. And once you understand where this road is and why it exists, you start to see it not just as a beautiful drive, but as a lifeline, sometimes even a strategic corridor. So in today's video, let's uncover the true story behind one of the most unusual roads in America. The Florida Keys are a long, curved chain of low-lying islands that extend from the southern tip of Florida down toward Cuba. They form a natural boundary between two worlds, the open Atlantic to the east and the calmer Gulf of Mexico to the west. These islands are not solid continental land. They are mostly built from ancient coral and limestone, flat pieces of land only a few meters above sea level. That's what makes the Keys so beautiful, and also so vulnerable. Hurricanes, storm surges, rising seas. Here, nature is always close. And right at the end of this chain sits Key West, compact, colorful, and culturally closer to the Caribbean than to mainland America. Tropical architecture, ocean air, and island rhythm define daily life. But if Key West is the destination, the real wonder is the way you get there. Driving the overseas highway feels like traveling on a thin line between sea and sky. On one side, emerald water. On the other, endless horizon. Palm trees, mangroves, shallow sandbanks, and sometimes dolphins and seabirds moving with the current. The overseas highway is the southernmost stretch of U.S. Route 1, connecting the Florida mainland to Key West through a sequence of bridges and islands, passing through Key Largo, Isla Mirada, Marathon, and beyond. And the most famous symbol of the entire journey is the 7-mile bridge. Here, the feeling changes. The land disappears. The ocean takes over. Two long bridges stretch forward like parallel lines drawn across the water. At sunrise, the sea turns gold. At sunset, the horizon burns red, orange, and purple. It's so cinematic that it has appeared in major films. And it's the moment many travelers remember for the rest of their lives. But to understand why this road exists at all, we have to go back to a time when there was no road. Only ocean. For a long time, the Keys were isolated. People lived by fishing, salt production, and small trade. Life here felt closer to Cuba or the Bahamas than to the U.S. mainland, because reaching the islands was difficult and slow. Then came a man with an idea that sounded insane. Henry Flagler believed Key West could become a major hub, especially because of its location near Cuba and the sea routes of the Caribbean. So he decided to build something no one thought could survive: a railway that crossed open ocean. Construction began in 1905. Workers battled brutal heat, storms, disease, and constant accidents, hauling materials and machinery out over water. Costs exploded. Critics called it madness, but Flagler refused to stop. By 1912, the Florida Overseas Railway was complete, an engineering miracle that connected the mainland to Key West. People called it the eighth wonder of the world. When Flagler's train finally arrived, locals celebrated him as the man who opened the gates of heaven. But the ocean doesn't negotiate. In 1935, a catastrophic hurricane struck the Keys with terrifying force, washing away sections of the railway, ripping bridges apart, and killing hundreds of people. The railway company was already weakened financially, and after the disaster, it couldn't recover. The dream collapsed. The tracks were abandoned. It looked like the sea had won. But from the ruins, A new idea emerged. During the Great Depression, the U.S. government launched job programs to rebuild and create work. Instead of starting from scratch, they decided to repurpose the strong foundations and bridges Flagler had left behind, transforming the broken railway into a road built for the new age of automobiles. After years of reconstruction, in 1938, the Overseas Highway officially opened. And suddenly, the Keys were no longer isolated. The road changed everything. Tourism grew, towns expanded, the local economy transformed. A remote island chain became a world-famous destination. But transportation wasn't the only reason this route mattered. Because in the 20th century, Key West wasn't just a vacation town, it was a strategic outpost. During World War II, Key West became a key naval and coastal defense point, helping monitor routes through the Caribbean. And later, during the Cold War, its location became even more sensitive, because Cuba was right there, just across the water. In October 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, Key West became one of the most tense places on the map. For 13 days, the world stood on the edge of nuclear war. Military forces increased, patrols intensified, bases across the region went on high alert. And in that moment, the Overseas Highway was more than a scenic route. It was the only direct land connection, moving supplies, fuel, equipment, and maintaining the island's link to the mainland. If the route failed, the ability to support Key West would be severely weakened. Eventually, diplomacy prevented disaster. The crisis ended with a major agreement, and the world stepped back from the brink. But the lesson remained. Key West is not only beautiful, it is positioned like a chess piece on the edge of history. And that leads to the question people always ask: if America could build a highway across the ocean to Key West, why not build another bridge to Cuba? The answer comes down to 4 things: depth, nature, cost, and politics. First, the Florida Strait is far deeper than the shallow waters many long bridges rely on. A deep seabed and unstable sediment make massive bridge supports extremely difficult. Second, hurricanes. This region sits directly in the path of powerful Atlantic storms. Any structure stretching for extreme distances across open sea would face constant threats and endless maintenance. Third, money. Even shorter modern megabridge projects can cost tens of billions. A bridge across the strait could cost far more, plus enormous annual upkeep. And finally, politics. For decades, US-Cuba relations have been shaped by embargoes, restrictions, and long-term tension. Even with perfect engineering, cooperation on a cross-border bridge would be nearly impossible. So the bridge remains a dream, and Key West stays as the last stop. Today, most people know Key West for its warm sea, relaxed island life, and colorful streets, where Caribbean and American influences blend into something unique. And it even has one of the strangest stories in modern US history. In 1982, a dispute involving a highway checkpoint caused massive disruption and threatened local tourism. So the residents responded in a way only Key West could. They declared independence, symbolically, creating what they called the Conch Republic. They raised a flag, staged a playful secession, and then dramatically announced their surrender shortly after. It was satire, but it worked. It drew attention, sparked headlines, and turned into a lasting part of the island's identity. Even today, the Conch Republic lives on through festivals, parades, and souvenirs, capturing the spirit of Key West perfectly: free, humorous, and stubbornly independent. So yes, the Overseas Highway is a beautiful drive, but it's also something deeper, a story of human ambition against the ocean, a dream destroyed by a hurricane, a rebirth that reshaped an entire region, and a strategic lifeline that once stood near the heart of world history. A road to paradise built on the edge of nature and the edge of politics. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.